Oyo decided to support their agenda, and Soldier 11 is one of the 3 agents to receive a buff in 2.5. And if I may give my personal opinion, it is the coolest and most impactful buff of the 3. Not necessarily only in terms of damage, that would be Grace, but in terms of playstyle and also quality of life. Today let's talk about her new and updated kit and how she plays, her best weapons, distress and distrive sets, her main and substats, her teams and Mindscapes, and lastly, let's also talk about her pros and cons. Welcome! I am Rivenous, and this is your complete, updated, in-depth guide to Soldier 11. Soldier 11 is a fire-type attack agent who specializes in enhanced, fire-infused basic attacks. Or at least she did that up until the buffs. Well, she still kinda does, but now she is much more burst-focused, consuming her fire infusions to then unleash a new basic attack with a very high multiplier. And she does that at least thrice per stun window. Soldier 11's playstyle is built around her unique mechanic called Fire Suppression. Normally, this is just an enhanced variant of her basic and dash attacks, but different skills can build up guaranteed trigger stacks, which can then be consumed to unleash a single but very strong enhanced basic attack. While her normal 4-hit basic attack string only deals physical damage, pressing her basic attack just at the right time will instead have her cast her enhanced basic attack called Fire Suppression, and they can either be triggered manually, as just explained, or they can be guaranteed. Various parts of her kit allow her to guarantee a certain amount of fire suppressions, which last up to 15 seconds. Her EX special, chain, and ultimate will guarantee the next 8 basic or dash attacks to trigger fire suppression, and her basic attack charge parry will guarantee her next 3 hits to do so as well. What's charge parry, you ask? Good question. Holding down her basic attack will have her charge up an attack, and releasing it just as she is about to be hit will then trigger a block counter, negating the incoming damage and granting 3 guaranteed fire suppressions. This block counter can then also be followed up with her basic 3. Additionally, the block counter can be triggered automatically when she is hit right at the start of the charge up. It is important to note that the fire suppression guarantee is kept at 8 stacks, and unfortunately you cannot really see them anywhere in the UI. While Soldier 11 has guaranteed fire suppressions, she then gains access to a 5th basic attack, and using her chain or ultimate will then enhance the next basic 5 she uses. If Soldier 11 has any guaranteed fire suppression stacks, she can always use her 5th basic attack regardless of whether or not she used her chain or ultimate before, but the empowered basic 5 can only be used once after using a chain or ultimate. Due to her block counter and EX specials generating fire suppression stacks, the non-enhanced basic 5 will still see frequent use. The enhanced basic 5 will then consume all guaranteed fire suppressions she has and deal additional damage for each stack consumed. We will get back to this in a bit. Lastly, triggering perfect dodge will preserve her current basic attack string for 5 more seconds, and you can continue from it after her dodge counter. That being said, I have a few remarks in regards to her enhanced basic 5, but to understand this better, we first have to cover her chain and ultimate. While her chain and ultimate both do what we expect them to do, as mentioned before, they both grant us 8 guaranteed fire suppression triggers, and as a small side note, Soldier 11 also has one of the strongest ultimates in the game. Both her chain attack and ultimate can then also be directly followed up with her basic attack 4. Knowing that, we can now go back to her basic attacks. Both her chain and ultimate will shortcut straight to basic 4, grant 8 stacks of fire suppression and enhance Soldier 11's next basic 5. This has quite a few implications. Both her basic 4 and also the enhanced basic 5 will then consume 1 stack on cast before her enhanced basic 5 consumes the remaining guaranteed fire suppressions. That also means the absolute maximum fire suppressions that her enhanced basic 5 can ever consume is 6. Her enhanced basic 5 takes around 0.6 seconds to complete all of its multi-hits, which means it will also provide 2 stacks for Brimstone. Consuming the full 6 fire suppressions given skill level 12 on her basics will have her enhanced basic 5 hit for around 1950%, which is really high. This leaves us with a basic combo of either Chain or Ultimate into basic 4 and enhanced basic 5. Her Quick Assist, Defensive Assist and Assist Follow-Up all work as we would expect them to work, but because Soldier 11's team's tendency to stun faster than she can generate decibels for, and with Assist Follow-Ups giving a lot of decibels, that also means we want to actively use at least if not 2 parries and Assist Follow-Ups in between each of the stun windows. Her dodge, dash attack and dodge counter all work as we would expect them to work, and we will more or less either not use them in the case of her dash attack, or at least not actively, and we do sometimes want to use her dodge counter. It also has a really good amount of fire anomaly application, and while I would highly discourage you from using Inferno Metal on her, it is necessary to use this a lot if you were to do so. We will not use her special, and her EX special has not only a pretty good multiplier, but also grants us 8 stacks of guaranteed fire suppression. With an energy cost of 80 however, it is frankly pretty steep, but I personally found myself not really having any problems in this regard. Additionally, her EX can be directly followed up with her basic 4, and using her EX special will also grant her the auto block state. Once while in this auto block state, if she were to be hit, she will automatically dodge said attack, then perform the charged counter attack, and we can continue with her previous basic attack sequence from here. This exact same auto dodge mechanic is also featured on her chain and ultimate, but as we will primarily use them during stun, we do really not get to make too much use out of this, except for the first attack after stun, that is. That said, let's finish her kit with her core and additional ability. Her core skill grants her a 70% basic attack damage bonus on fire suppression attacks, and her additional ability grants her 10% fire damage, increased to 32.5% when the enemy is stunned. Additionally, with her Awakening 6, well, more on that in just a bit. That would summarize her kit, and frankly, Soldier 11's game plan at a baseline is actually pretty simple. We use her manual fire suppression basic attacks and dodge or basic parry when needed, use her EX to make our lives easier and also for 1 stack of Woodpecker, parry frequently on both S11 and also your stunner for more decibels and faster stuns, and we use her chain or ultimate into basic 4 and enhanced basic 5 during stun, at least 3 times. Because most of her damage does come from her basics and ultimate, our skill priority will look as such. First, focus on the core skill, basics and chain and EX, and lastly assist and dodge. The more often you use the dodge counter, the more important her dodge becomes, and I honestly would still recommend leveling it. So there is one very cool thing about Soldier 11 that I did not mention before. If you have any guaranteed fire suppressions after her basic 5, you can directly skip to her basic 3. So let's talk about it, because it is actually really important to optimize her out of stun rotation. After using her EX special, if we simply smash her basic attacks, she will directly go into her basic 4 and 5 as we would expect, and then into her basic 1, 2, 3, 4 and then 5 again. And that is not great. With her buffs, however, we can now also use her timing on her basic attacks during fire suppression and skip her basics 1 and 2. Timing the basic attack correctly after her basic 5 will then directly lead into her basic 3. Given how her EX special gives her 8 stacks, that leaves us with the following combo. EX special into basic 4 and 5, then we shortly wait and time her basic attack to follow up with her basic 3, 4 and 5, and repeat that once more. This will optimally use all of the 8 fire suppression stacks she gains from her EX. If necessary, use your dodge counter in between, since she now preserves her sequence. For the stun window, we begin stun by triggering it with our stunner, ideally that is Dialyn, and we do so using her health basic. We select Soldier 11 and do her chain, or ultimate if triggered by Dialyn, then cancel the chain and use her basic 4 into enhanced basic 5 and swap out of it. We then re-trigger the chain using any other character, select Soldier 11 and use her chain into basic 4 and enhanced basic 5. We now use her ultimate and follow it up again with her basic 4 and enhanced basic 5. If we have time left at the end, usually mainly the case with Lighter and Dialyn, we can also fit in an optional EX special at the very end. Soldier 11's Awakening 2 expands upon her additional ability, increasing her crit damage by a further 16%. This bonus increments with every upgrade, going up to 48% additional crit damage at Awakening 6, which brings us back to what I have talked about previously in the kit overview. Since her additional ability grants us 32.5% fire damage bonus as well as 48% crit damage at Awakening 6 now, that also means we cannot simply skip her additional ability anymore. While running a Dialyn Astra team was something that previously we have been able to do, as we could simply give up the additional fire damage and it did not hurt too much, this is no longer the case. Well, we still can technically, but it will be much worse than before. This means that we are now looking at more restrictive teams, as Dialyn is now her best in slot partner by a good mile, and that does not really leave too many options for the third slot. We will talk more about this during the team section. All in all, 48% more crit damage is great and results in a solid 14 to 15% damage gain by going from A1 to A6. Actual results may vary depending on your weapon and team choice. If you are unsure, a good stopping point is either her A2 or her A4. Let's talk about her weapons. Heartstring Nocturne is still Soldier 11's best choice, but Cordis Gamina or also Myriad Eclipse will work as well. Unfortunately, Brimstone did lose a lot of value, as we now only get 3 stacks from her basic 4 and EBA 5 after each chain or ultimate, and the first stacks will then also start running out by the time that we use her one last combo in stun. Means we can expect around 6 stacks during stun at maximum, with the initial amount of stacks depending heavily on whether or not you have had any stacks before stun and how many you have had. So Brimstone is able to perform a little bit better than shown here, but generally it did lose a lot of value unfortunately. Soldier 11 has effectively 1.5 sets. Puffer Electro and Woodpecker, albeit Dawn's Bloom did become slightly better. A 4-piece Puffer Electro is generally her best choice pretty much always, as her new stun rotation leaves no room for her EX special before, and even more so with Dialyn, which means we are working with a maximum of 1 stack on Woodpecker during stun. In addition, its duration is only a mere 6 seconds anyway, so it doesn't really do too much. Inferno Metal is incredibly inconsistent and with Dialyn pretty much also impossible to upkeep, especially given the increase in anomaly thresholds. Even with Lighter, it is extremely hard to maintain any reasonably good uptime. An exception can be made if you play with Critneys, I guess, but then you would need to play Critneys, and nobody except me does that. Anyway, 4-piece Puffer it is with Dialyn, otherwise a 4-piece Woodpecker can be better, but if you run Woodpecker, make sure to use your EX right after the first chain B4-5 combo. As for the 2-piece, either Woodpecker, Inferno Metal, Branch and Bladesong, Astral Voice or Homopunk will do. This doesn't really change at Awakening 6 much either, but Branch and Blade does become a slightly worse choice. Choose whatever has better substats. Speaking of which, unless you have really good substats, and I am talking like 40 plus here, crit rate in slot 4 is her best choice regardless of weapon, as Soldier 11 has no innate passive that buffs her crit rate, making it way too demanding to build it via substats alone. Try to hit as close to 100% crit rate as you can. Otherwise, crit damage is another option for slot 4. As we much prefer to play Dialyn over Lighter now, fire damage is again her best choice in slot 5. However, pen ratio is pretty much even, so whether you choose fire damage or pen ratio doesn't really matter too much. Unless you have her Mindscape 2, in which case you should choose pen. Anyway, as per usual, choose whatever has better substats. If you still run lighter, well, definitely pen ratio. As for slot 6, we are looking at attack percent. For her substats, focus on crit rate until at least 80, ideally 90 to a maximum of 100% in combat, then attack percent and crit damage, and lastly flat pen and flat attack. Soldier 11's Mindscape 1 effectively grants her 1 free EX special every 50 seconds, which means a total of 3 EX specials per fight. Since we don't have time to utilize those EX during stun anymore, the main purposes of this Mindscape are to maintain a higher woodpecker uptime on it if you run it, albeit it is only 6 seconds, as well as making use of her new skip, which can be a good damage increase, but it also depends on whether or not you are able to do that. Her Mindscape 2 grants her more damage bonus, and at this point you definitely want to favor pen ratio over fire damage in slot 5. The actual mileage you can get from this Mindscape will vary widely on how you play, expect something between 3 and 8%. Her M3 and M5 exist and are honestly pretty solid, and her M4 is pretty useless. Soldier 11's M6 is actually pretty goodish. Since the buffs shift her damage more towards her basics, and this Mindscape is practically granting a permanent 25% fire res threat to them, it is a pretty solid Mindscape, albeit it is slightly worse against fire weak enemies. Since Soldier 11 requires either a fire or obel squad agent to obtain her additional ability, and up to 48% crit damage as well as 32.5% fire damage bonus being locked behind it, we really do not want to give up on that anymore. That also means, again, her teams are much more restricted now. Dial and Orphe is one of Soldier 11's best teams, and it does not work without Orphe. Yes, I mean, we could run any other Obel Squad member instead, but none of them are as good as Orphe are. Since Soldier 11 would be missing her additional ability with Astra instead, Astra does fall behind a properly played Orphe. Dialan also allows for a good puffer electro uptime compared to non-Dialan teams, which catapults this team ahead even further. Lighter and Jufufu will work as well in place of Dialan and allows for Astra in the third slot. Nothing more to say, this is just what we already have run before Dialan anyways. Trigger and Jingyi, well, they work, but Jingyi requires either of Orphe or Lucy for Soldier 11 to have her additional ability, and both of them share the little problem that fire and electric rarely have matching elements. I would not recommend this team over her other choices, but if you really want to play Soldier 11 and have no other choices, this can be sufficient. Lastly, if you are new to the game or free to play and you have none of the other options, well, Soldier 11 might be underperforming for you, but Kolidar and Lucy are the best free to play new account options you have. Soldier 11 is effectively a free unit and one of the best choices from the selector if you are missing a fire DPS on your account. She utilizes either Woodpecker or Puffer Electro, preferably the latter, which are already established sets and you are likely to already have a few good pieces of them. Soldier 11 is a solid fire DPS, not necessarily the greatest, but not bad either, and now she gains also a pretty big glow up with her awakenings. She is, however, relatively expensive to invest into due to her high skill multipliers. She has great weapon choices in both premium and free-to-play options with a pretty good Mindscape 6, but her other Mindscapes are just kinda mid or even just bad, looking at you Mindscape 4, or if they are mid, it is really just a question of whether or not you can make effective use out of them. Both her skill floor and ceiling are somewhere in the middle, where she is not the easiest unit to pick up and play, as you will need to learn her manual fire suppressions as well as playing with manual chain, but there also is not much left to optimize for after that. Lastly, she has a fair amount of teams, but also a clear best team in Dial and Orphe, with Lighter being a much preferred second choice now, and other teams are clearly lacking behind those options. And with that, we are at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment on your thoughts on Soldier 11 and the new awakening system and her buffs, and join the Discord. A special thanks goes out to my YouTube and Patreon members who make this content possible. If you wish to support me, you will find a link to my Patreon in the description, or click the join button right below this video. And as always, I appreciate all of you and wish you a great day. Peace!